The Alchemist. From chemistry to math and logic, he is ruled, for religion leaves man dopey and unaware of the greater nature that science claims to be responsible for. His brow furrowed and disheveled his clothes, precision once prevailed, but now transposed to other parts of life, his work flawless, for life without this work was too raucous. His fellow pilgrims looked to be classless, observed through his quite strange thick-rimmed glasses. His tall, thin frame did stand above them all, but not so near, for words of theirs were droll. He would find himself quite undone if when they reached Canterbury, and it contends that God is true and mortal man his art, his life would be torn across and apart. The alchemist contemplated his tale, the constant provocation and their wails forced him to hastily tell a story that might have struck at heart much too closely. The Alchemist's Tale. In a land not so distant, and in a time not too far past, there lived a lord of a prosperous and fertile land. He was progressing in age, and his best years were laid out behind him. Many a conquest and adventure remain as nothing but distant memories, and this brought him great distress. He sought more in life than he could achieve in the time provided by God, but this mortal turmoil was met with laughs and quips at the Lord's expense. "Father, your age must have gotten the better of you already, as your mind has surely begun to slip away," his eldest son replied, a hint of excitement bookending the response to the Lord's ramblings. "But of course not. I only desire more. You are not yet ready to receive all that I have acquired for you, and generations to come. I simply need more time." The Lord spewed to no one in particular anymore, his attention now to a gargantuan bookshelf that held more literature than any man could read in all his lifetime. The lady of the castle stormed in with a face wrinkled from years of worry and fervent care. "Dear, you mustn't get so worked up. The doctor said that those who panic acquire the disease much quicker than those who listen to their wives." Her voice carried about the chamber, causing the son to look down instinctually and the Lord to spin about with such haste that he almost fell. "There's no time for such nonsense," the Lord blurted as he composed himself in front of his all too unimpressed wife. "I believe all that I need is within this here." He brandished a book with unfamiliar characters on it, holding it with care yet evident glee. "My father passed a story on to me of an incredible fountain that stood in a city square, regal and strong, and all those who bathed in it were unbound by death and his feared dance." The mother and son exchanged quizzical looks, as the Lord remained engrossed in the beautifully illustrated novella. They decided it would be for the best to leave him alone until he settled down once more, as he usually did in these fits of anxiety and so-called inspiration. The Lord was unfazed by the words of skepticism and set to live out his plan. Family meant little to him anyway, after his wife and advisor determined an heir behind his back, saying he wasn't mentally stable enough to select one. All that mattered now was his search for this fountain that provided an extended life, a miracle fountain that would let him live out so much more of his life than he would miss in death, something he could not bear to imagine. He quickly found his closest knight, and, as loyalty prevailed, they set out on a journey under the cover of night. The Lord was unable to see it at the time, but the knight astutely asserted that this bout of paranoia that the Lord was facing might have been due to the stories being told of a disease spreading across the land. It was said to kill whole hamlets in hours, and at most a day, which was enough to set any man on edge, royalty or peasant. The line was blurred anyway in such a time, as all men died equal when no one dared to bury the sick properly. The search of theirs continued for days, asking passerby and townsfolk for any knowledge of a fountain of any sort. Few were willing to give any sort of answer, and those who were kind enough rarely knew anything. Days grew into weeks, and weeks to months, with hope waning from the hearts of both the knight and the Lord. The Lord himself was not looking his best, the evidence of old age loudly standing out on his face and with his stature. Growing more accustomed to death as an inescapable inevitability, his fervor for adventure faded out. They found their way to an inn to stay for a while and rest, but the Lord's condition worsened, and as the knight and him shared a few final words. "Come, let us converse once more, my good friend, for I believe I have not much time left with you." The Lord beckoned weakly, though the warmth and energy in his eyes never lost strength. "Of course, but what would you like to discuss? It seems during our travels we spoke of almost everything man could discuss." The room stood quiet briefly as this thought hung in the air, very much like another powerful idea that remained present. "Death no longer terrifies me, Sir Knight, as my journey has revealed some truths. The Fountain of Youth, or whatever they may call it, if it exists, is as much a real thing as it is also a beautiful idea that drives those who wish to find it to a longer life. In this way, those who seek the fountain find youth, but never immortality. Everything is temporary, and searching for something that claims it isn't might be just as foolish as I. Just know that if one day you do find this fountain, that you don't squander it. For what a waste it would be. I think I see a stranger who waits for me and calls my name. The journey was worth every minute, but there is no greater reward than the knowledge that whatever happens, I am me and I will never not be." At this moment the Lord sighed his last breath and shut his eyes as a smile tugged at the edges of his mouth one last time.